Welcome to Falcons Drip, your go-to source for Falcons news and draft coverage. I'm Thon Ray, founder and voice of Falcons Drip.
Welcome back, everybody, to Falcons Drip Radio. Today, as always, I'm joined by my co-host Kyle, and we're going to break down and talk about the upcoming preseason game and practices with the Miami Dolphins.
Yep, and this game they're gonna have a game after spending a little bit of time practicing. They're gonna have a game in Miami at 7 p.m. Friday, August 11th. It looks like it's gonna be airing on Fox, and this is an interesting matchup. Two teams that are quality teams that are looking to do some stuff in the playoffs.
And I would say too, like in these kinds of games, depending on what you're looking for, the practices can actually be more beneficial than the games can be, because typically in games you're just kind of you're seeing what kind of depth you have, maybe trying to run a couple basic things with your offense and just kind of seeing that kind of stuff. It's very rare you will see see Xavier Howard matching up on Drake London for more than one or two drives, right?
100%.
But we're going to see him practice in one-on-ones. That's going to be happening all day. So keep your eyes on the practices. That's really what you'll want to be tuned into. And then if you want to see some more depth players, which is, I'm totally into that. I'll watch every single snap of the preseason games. But if you're into that kind of stuff, then the preseason games are where it's at.
Same here. If you're big on depth and watching to see how all the young players do, it's so fun to watch like the fourth quarters of preseason games, because then you get to see those underrated practice squad guys, the back end roster guys, and how they do and how they look. So it's very interesting to see.
What are you looking forward to most of seeing in these matchups?
I think the cornerback and wide receiver matchup is going to be interesting. I don't know how much the top end receivers and corners are going to play for each team, but I know I'll list off some of their guys. I know we know who our guys are, the AJ Terrells, the Jesse Bates, but in their receiving core, they have Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Braxton Berrios, who is a solid slot receiver, Cedric Wilson, he was with the Cowboys last year, solid number 4 guy. So they have some quality depth. So I'm definitely interested to see our receivers versus their corners. I'll also mention a guy like Freddie Swain, another interesting slot receiver, spent some time with the Seahawks after coming out of Florida, where he was a quality 4 or 5 receiver, if I'm not mistaken. Had a couple great games, but overall didn't put it all together where he became this great receiver. He was just a average like backup.
And just to kind of make a point on that, just depending on who plays and who doesn't play, I'm really excited to see how our defense, specifically the backfield, but our defense in general, just handles the speed of the Miami Dolphins, right? You mentioned it. Hill, Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Mostert. They drafted Devon Achane in the 3rd round, I believe. I mean, they have some real speed, and it'll be awesome just to see how our defense starters and backups, I should say, kind of how they handle that. Because
it's super interesting to see those battles. I'll also mention they have some interesting quarterbacks on their roster. Tua, Mike White. He started some games for the Jets. Skylar Thompson is a former Kansas State guy who played at West Virginia some. So he's a guy who's moved around throughout college and throughout NFL. So it'll be interesting quarterbacks are always interesting to see, because some of these guys end up being quality practice squad guys. So it's always interesting to see who becomes that and how the back end guys look.
And I think Skylar Thompson he played pretty well in the preseason last year, if I remember correctly. I don't think I think he'll do well against backups and those kinds of things. But, like you said, just a really interesting guy to watch. So for me, like my biggest thing for all of this is I want to see what Ridder, like, what's it like for Desmond Ridder? What kind of takeaways can we take out of Desmond Ridder from watching this? How sharp is he going to look? How often? And we're going to look at different things, right? He may really try and test these teams down the field in preseason, and we might not see that in the regular season, depending on how well it works. But if we see him really pushing the pace, we see him trying to launch it downfield and hit our targets deep, and it's successful, we might see a lot more of that in the regular season. So I'm just kind of looking to see how he does and how on pace, not on pace, on target he is with and on the same page he is with some of these receivers, specifically Kyle Pitts, because him and London are they've been vibing since before they were drafted, because they both worked with Paul, the quarterback coach Palmer, and so I just to see him with the other guys is really it.
Yeah, I know we're talking about matchups and stuff, but I wouldn't be mistaken not to bring up some former Falcons they have on this roster. Tight end Eric Saubert. They have Duke Riley, the former second round pick
I think he's a
at
third
linebacker.
he's a third round. He was a third round pick.
Third round pick. I think it was early third round, right?
Yeah, because we traded
Okay,
it.
that's why I'm
We traded.
mistaken. They also have Justin Bethel, who spent a year with the Falcons. So they got a couple former Falcons guys who I think Falcons fans are going to be excited to see what they're up to now. I know they weren't great players with the Falcons, but it's always interested to see former Falcons come back and see how they do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most people are hoping Duke Riley doesn't do too well. I know he's not particularly a fan favorite.
Especially with how his career turned out in Atlanta.
Mhm. But to say he's still in the NFL, I mean he's had a successful career so far. He'll probably play a lot in this game, backing up Jerome Baker. We'll probably see a lot of Duke Riley.
I know we're talking about guys who you're excited to watch, so I want to maybe let's do something where we list off like our top 5 guys on the roster, which we're most excited to see from the Dolphins and see what they do.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple guys that stand out to me, and I'm like, okay, this guy is an exciting watch. A couple of them I've already mentioned,
Yeah,
but I'll let you look at it unless you need more time.
no, I just think we talked about some of them, and like number one for me, which we've already talked about, is Frank Darby. Like I'm really excited to see what he's going to do. I mean, he's doing it in camp, so I'm really excited for that. Um, but I won't jump into it. We talked about that a lot last time, but I would say too, my probably top guy, we mentioned him too, is Zach Harrison, and the top 2 guys are Zach Harrison and 3 guys. I guess it'd be our young edge rushers, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. Like, I want to see what AK can do. I want to see what Malone can do. I'm excited to see Zach Harrison. I want to see those guys really kind of getting after it. And, Zach Harrison, not as much being a rookie, but I want to see AK and D'Angelo Malone take it to this next level than they were at last year. I want to see them see how far they've come and the upgrade that they've had.
100%. I love those answers. Um, I'm gonna give kind of off the board answers. I'm gonna go with who was I gonna go? Ade Ogundeji. I'm really excited to see him because he's been a young guy on this roster for a couple years now, and he hasn't really put it all together, but he definitely has the tools to, and there's a
Mm.
reason he hasn't been cut. So it'll be interesting to see if he proves he should stick on the roster or if he's definitely gone after training camp 1, because I know a lot of Falcons fans are saying, "Oh yeah, he should be gone." But for me, it's like, okay, let's see what happens in preseason, and
Yeah.
maybe he proves his draft pick was worth it.
Hmm.
And
And
I'll also go for my next one. You got to go Bijan. And reason for Bijan, it's the first look in a Falcons uniform that people get in full pads, full uniform. So that's always interesting to see. Clark Phillips is another one that'll be exciting to see as he's competing for a job in the cornerback room. DeMarco Howard is
absolutely.
one.
You know,
Michael Walker is another one that jumps out. a guy who hasn't really put it all together, but has the potential to be a great inside backer if he puts it together.
Yeah, the draft picks are always exciting to watch. So another person I'm going to throw out there is Carlos Washington Jr., the running back, the undrafted running back out of what was it? Uh, Louisiana, not Louisiana,
Southeastern
Southeast,
Louisiana. It was like
Southeastern Louisiana,
a
yeah.
D2 program or a low D1.
But just to see him, as the fourth running back, we're going to get a lot of him. I don't expect Bijan, Algier, or Cordell Patterson to play much, if at all. I think
Mhm.
I think that CP probably won't touch the field. Maybe we'll get Bijan and Algier a little bit, but I think this is going to be mostly Goodwin and Carlos Washington.
Yeah,
And
it's also going to be interesting seeing and weird seeing Goodwin wearing Caleb Huntley's old number
yeah,
42.
yeah, I don't like that, but we'll have to see what
Hmm.
happens. Also, don't be surprised too. Like a lot of these guys, if people, we're going to whittle it down from 90 to 53, and don't be surprised to see some of these guys changing numbers. Right, like if Goodwin makes the roster, I don't expect him to keep 42 throughout the season. Maybe he will, but I don't think he will. Um, but we're going to get a lot of Goodwin and Carlos Washington, and my money is, and we know we talked about this a little bit. My money's on Goodwin just because of the special teams factor and us losing Avery Williams. Um, so I would be. I think even if Carlos is if he performs better just because of the special teams factor, I think Goodwin probably makes the roster and Carlos goes to the practice squad. Or if he doesn't play well in preseason, then we'll probably pick someone else and put him on our practice squad.
Yeah, for sure. I think Carlos Washington is in prime position to make this roster, seeing as he only has one guy to basically beat out to make it. As the other running backs went down, we thought we were gonna maybe have to cut Avery Williams or Caleb Huntley because we had so many running backs, and now we're left with a decision between two guys who weren't even supposed to make the roster in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Um, so which let's not including Drake London, Mac Hollins, Scotty Miller, Hodge, or Frank Darby. I think I know who you're going to say. Which of these guys are you most excited to watch?
Are we talking just wide receivers or
Just wide receivers.
you already know my answer is Penny Hart.
Yeah.
A guy who's spent time with the Seahawks as a fifth or sixth receiver. I said that last episode, and I'll continue to say it. And for anyone who was like, oh, this guy has no chance at making the roster, this guy has made a quality Seahawks roster for the past couple years and excelled in backup and special teams role. So I'm very interested to see if he can continue to excel.
Yeah, all of these guys will be interesting. And it kind of part of it too depends on what kind of body type they want. Um, because him and Xavier Malone, who we talked about, are kind of the smaller, shiftier, speedy guys, right? But JJRK Whiteside, if he plays well, if he plays well and he's just a bigger bodied guy, maybe they'll try and keep him. Um, but I've talked about him a lot too, but one guy I just keep hearing about is Xavier Malone. Like he just keeps flashing in camp. And also, we talked about him a lot when he was originally signed to UDFA. Just like his big play potential is huge. What wasn't he averaging like 20 yards a catch in
I
college?
think so. I think it
It was
was
like
at like
19.8 or something like that yards a catch in college. And he's just a big play waiting to happen. So I think
that insane speed.
yeah. So we'll see because he's smaller, right? 5'7", like 100. What is he? 175 pounds.
160, 170,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
It
But
just
I
depends.
will say to add on to your point, if he doesn't make the roster, him and Penny Hart or Frank Darby for that matter, I think if those guys don't make the roster, they get added to the practice squad, or at
Yeah,
least
I think
that's
so
what I
too.
do if I'm the Falcons.
Uh, Absolutely. I mean, they're just the speed of that guy is ridiculous. I think you really don't want to let someone like that go if you can try and keep him, even if you don't think he'll help you this year.
I will say another guy that's going to be fun to watch is Clifford Chapman, the 6'5" UTSA safety. We've talked about it before that he'd be a good guy for some bad teams who aren't quite playoff teams this year and don't have a chance of making it to stash on the back end of a roster to hopefully develop for the years to come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm excited to see him. The backup safety battle will be interesting too. Just
Hmm.
between
With
Helms,
Helms and all those
Chapman,
undrafted
Luke's,
guys.
yeah, Dennis from the XFL, Abernathy, who we had last year. So just it's going to be fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing our guys going up against guys in a different color jersey, and um, it's just going to be awesome. And we didn't even mention the offensive line. I'm excited to see what it looks like with Matthew Bergeron in there.
Hmm. I kind of want to go over some guys who are interesting to watch for the Dolphins.
Yeah, let's do it.
So I'll go over a couple guys. Channing Tindall, one of a great inside linebacker, and if you know anything, he went to Georgia,
Mhm.
and Georgia is known for putting out great linebackers. And he barely started at Georgia, and he was a third round pick. So a great player who barely started, but somehow became a third round pick, and I think is going to excel. So he's going to be exciting to watch and see what he can do in this preseason game. Also, Mike White is an interesting guy. Got to watch considering he's started some games. So I'm interested to see how he does in a backup role and everything he does in camp. Also, I've mentioned Freddie Swain. He's an interesting guy that's going to be competing for their back end of the wide receiver room. Um, they also have a guy that the Falcons will be familiar with, Terrion Armstead, offensive lineman. So it'll be interesting to see how long he plays and what reps he gets. And I'll also mention the Cowboys center who came over, Connor Williams. That's also an interesting one.
So two of the guys like for me that just stand out. One being Cam Smith, the cornerback.
I love that pick.
Yeah, he's taken in the second round. At one point, they talked about him being a potential first rounder, and he's got so much confidence in him. It's awesome. He's fun to watch. And then another sleeper who I've talked about 3 years ago, and I had actually ranked as a top five. He was a cornerback at Syracuse, and I actually said, for me, I would move him to safety, and he would be a top five safety in my opinion. That was Trill Williams, out of Syracuse, and he's every year it starts to look like he's doing well, and then he gets hurt. And so if he can kind of put it all together, I'd love to see what he can do someday. But he's just kind of get after it and stay healthy. And then lastly, too, like I'm excited to see Devon Achane. Like I want to see 100. You don't draft a 182-pound running back in the third round unless you think he can really make stuff happen. And so let's see.
But I think most running backs at A-chain size aren't durable. But I
Mm.
think A-chain proved to be a little more durable than most backs his size, playing through injuries, playing through different aches and pains. He definitely proved his toughness and his ability on the field with his
And
speed and size combination.
we'll just have to see, right? Like it's different playing through that kind of stuff in college than playing through the NFL, playing in the NFL.
Hmm.
Even though he did do it in SEC, which is as close as you can get. But
1,000%. So
all right.
I'm super excited for this game. It'll be the first time we've watched Falcons in a little while, so it's gonna be excited to see him strap it up for the first time in a while.
Yeah, it's gonna be awesome. I can't wait for Friday. So, today, guys, we went over just kind of expectations for the guys we're looking for, the matchups we're looking for against the Falcons versus the Dolphins. Again, we're gonna be practicing against them this week. Then 7 p.m. Eastern time on Fox, you can tune in and watch the Falcons and Dolphins play. So make sure you guys check it out. Let us know too, and if you're listening on YouTube or somewhere else, what kind of matchups you want to see and players you want to kind of watch. But with that, guys, awesome. Let's get this W on Friday. Rise up.
Yeah, let's rise up.
Again, this is Thon Ray. You guys can follow us at Falcons_drip on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Please make sure you subscribe, follow, whatever you need to do to get the alert for our next episode. If you guys enjoyed today, please leave us a review. It always helps us grow. Until then, see you next time. Rise up.